All right, so hey everybody, let's just jump right into it. Obviously, with everything going on right here, just the mission is to provide insight and move the conversation forward. I think nobody is probably more qualified to speak about the injustice of the current criminal justice system than you, Ricky. So I really appreciate you coming here and using, what little platform that we have and donating your time and your message to this. And I think that we could have a great conversation.
Sure. I'll go ahead and start. My name is Ricky Kidd. I'm 45 years of age. I was recently exonerated as of August 15, 2019. So a short 9 months I've been home, reintegrated back into society. I decided to take my experience and use it to advance the conversation of injustice and criminal justice reform.
My name is Anthony Robinson. I'm a former prosecutor, spent a decade at the Harris County District Attorney's Office, located in Houston, Texas, rose to the level of a chief prosecutor. I was the first African-American male to actually achieve that level in nearly 2 decades in the county. I walked away from being a prosecutor last year on Juneteenth.
I'm Joe Simons, and I'm a criminal defense attorney in Boston, Massachusetts. I do have some experience with overturning a few old convictions from people who were wrongfully convicted, and I'm very interested in Ricky's journey and what we can do to try to improve the criminal justice system.
The first question and comments that I have been getting a lot of with respect to the George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery killings, and just as a huge point of contention and anger and distrust for the criminal justice system, there's an overwhelming notion that had George Floyd's killing not been recorded, there would not be this outcry, there would not be this case against his killers. And if the roles are reversed and it is a black perpetrator or a white victim, the government doesn't need massive public outcry to do the right thing. So my question, and this, Anthony, this might be in your wheelhouse, how can prosecutors build trust with the people?
To that question, the answer is they're correct. We would not know Ahmaud Arbery. We would not know George Floyd had there not been video. They would have been 2 more statistics in a long line that would have been swept under and closed out as lawful behavior without ever being questioned. They're going on currently. We know those individuals now because there's video. And this happened here in Harris County, happens all the time. No video, no crime. But if it was a white person, it would truly be investigated. Like people always say there's 2 criminal justice systems, one for the black, one for the white. There's actually 3. You get one for the blacks and browns. You get one for the poor whites, which is still better than the black and browns receive. And then you get one for your middle class and your wealthy. And also we need to diversify our district attorney's offices. The overwhelming majority of prosecutors in this country are white. They lack experience and knowledge of understanding what happens in black and brown communities. Because the way it works here in Harris County and in Texas, basically the police officers have discretion at the beginning to determine, okay, we think a crime happened. In Harris County, the police officers will call the prosecutor and give them a quick 2-minute synopsis of what the evidence is and what they believe occurred. The police officer can sell that story one of 2 ways. They can tell the facts as they are and bring a case file over and bring evidence in, the prosecutor can review it. Or they can just say, yeah, the person seems to be justified. We talked to witnesses and they agree with them. We're just calling for a decline on charges. Part of what needs to happen is making sure those cases actually make it into the hands of the district attorney's office. Then the district attorney's office has to do the right thing by presenting that case accurately to a grand jury on felony cases here.
So Ricky, with respect to your situation, did you feel a shift when more media attention was brought to it?
Absolutely. I do believe there was a shift in my situation. For many years, I was charged in 96. I was convicted in 97. For 10 years, I cried out for help through letters, writing organizations, churches, lawyers, innocence projects. and it fell on deaf ears. And so in the process, I still had the appeal process to address, and I had to make sure that I filed my paperwork in a timely fashion, pro se, of course, denied, of course. But eventually, 10 years later, the Midwest Innocence Project and Professor Sean O'Brien with UMKC School of Law began to look into my case. They took my case. A few short years later, 2009, they did such a diligent job of bringing everything together. We was ready to go into court and not only prove that I did not commit the crime, but prove who did commit the crime. And the Missouri Attorney General's office pushed back on that for legal reasons, jurisdictional issues, time-barred issues. And they kept playing that game, I call it a game, for 10 years. I just come home last year. So it took 10 years from 2009 to 2019 when the facts had already been out. They was flushed out. But it was only until media attention where rather the media started paying attention to my case here locally. I shared one of those stories with you. Police Commissioner Alvin Brooks had came forward. Ex-prosecutor Cindy Dodge had came forward. Many people, state representatives began to weigh in. And even then, they still would not back down. And so the drumbeat had to keep drumming till eventually they had no choice but to pay attention. Now, ultimately, the courts the judge, at the end of the day, no protests, no media, those actions itself cannot get a person out of prison. A judge is going to have to sit on that bench or sit at his desk and pick that pen up and decide to sign yes or no, this guy is able to go. I tend to believe that when people are paying attention, or those entities or those judges or those elected officials recognize that people are paying attention, I feel that they tend to do the right thing more so than wrong. Had nobody not paying attention, it's easier to sweep it under the rug. Sometimes, even with all that attention, it still doesn't matter. They could be some stubborn individuals and nothing is happening there regardless. They could be on the verge of retiring. They don't feel like there's no political consequence, and sometimes they'll double down. So it really can work both ways. Sometimes in secrecy, they'll let you go. But when it's open in the air like that, sometimes they'll double down, they'll triple down. I think Anthony probably been in that environment. I'm assuming not himself, fair to say, but at least he's been in that environment where he can recognize some of the things that I'm saying. Again, whether they double down or whether they actually do the right thing. But media definitely does help.
The media is very important. And let's keep it in the context now, because throughout the country, what we hear are a lot of police agencies and district attorneys' offices, when there are body cams and evidence out there that can show what really happened, are going into court and arguing and trying to keep from releasing that evidence. And they're doing it under the guise that, well, if we put it out, there'd be too much pretrial publicity and the case would get transferred to a less diverse jurisdiction. You know, there was a point in time, maybe a couple decades ago, when that was a valid argument. Currently, everyone has a cell phone, everyone has a camera. Majority of evidence we're getting in now through DA's offices and just in general are coming from the public, not the police. So why are the police trying to keep their videos from being released, and why are the district attorneys actually latching on to that ridiculous argument and trying to keep the evidence from coming in? Yes, they don't want to come in, because if you start seeing what these officers were doing, there would be a lot more outcries out there. There'll be a lot more George Floyd situations occurring, and they don't want that on their hands for those same political reasons. Now, you're right. When there's a light on people, they many times will do the right thing, but it depends on their position. If they're in what they're considered to be a safe county, where people share the same ideology as they do, they will double and triple down. When you think about it in recent pop context, think about Drew Brees' statement just the other day. He doubled down on a statement from 4 years ago in regards to Colin Kaepernick, because he felt so comfortable saying it. And now he realizes that more people are converting back to the other side and willing to speak up. He comes out now with the apology.
When I became a defense attorney, I was surprised, because even 10 years ago, I assumed that all police would easily have body cams. The technology's there. I mean, it's only getting cheaper and cheaper to store that. have you seen any movement, either Anthony or Ricky, toward more body cams, or what reasons that departments are giving for not having body cams?
So there has been a movement towards more body cams in your major cities in Texas. And there's no excuse not to have them. If the police departments can have tanks and assault vehicles and all the infrared technology that they're purchasing under taxpayer dollars, they can get body cams to equip all the officers with so that they can make sure they accurately depict what occurred on the scene to give us an independent view other than their narrative.
But the benefit to a body camera or dash cam is that it tells the truth. If the guy pushed the officer or did something wrong, the camera's going to tell the truth. It's going to support the officer. Why wouldn't you want that? And if something did go wrong on the officer side, the camera's going to tell the truth. Why wouldn't you want that?
It's not only important to have the body cameras, but the officers have to turn them on. And it's very clear when they're on and when they're off.
What can we do to make sure these individuals who are given so much power to police us, to police, the citizens of this country, are actually well trained? And then the back half of that is, when we identify bad actors, what can we do to make sure that they never practice policing again?
Our officers get trained, but the training is minimal. You say they go through academy, it's a rush, and they cite the lack of police officers on the force due to retirement, that they have to put people out before they're ready. They need psychological assessments before they hit the streets, and they also need mental health training.
Let me just say this, very, very, very important. Wrongfully convicted, shady police work, in my case, egregious prosecutor misconduct, in my case, every reason to hate law enforcement or prosecutors. Let me be very, very clear. I love law enforcement and I love prosecutors. I love judges. I cannot close my eyes and imagine a world without. It just simply would be chaotic. They wake up every day and they put on those uniforms every day. And they don't go out in the community to protect their family, their own home. They go out in the community to protect us and our homes and our community as a whole. They are our heroes, actually. And so we owe it not just to the community that they police, but we owe it to the officers as well to make sure that they have proper and adequate training. We owe that to them. The ones, I'm talking about the good ones, and I believe that a vast majority of police officers are good police officers. But we owe them that. Our society should dictate that all individuals who commit crimes or bad acts should be held accountable, period. And so as we move forward, when we go from protest to policy discussions like we are today, we need to make sure not only the district attorneys have the forethought and the gall to press a charge or pursue a charge, but also perhaps even looking at taking it out of their hands, since they already have a cozy relationships. Understandable though, they already have a cozy working relationship, which we need them to. Perhaps we need to look at taking it out of their hands so they don't even have to deal with that dilemma. I don't think that's fair to our good prosecutors who we elect in office.
Ricky, how do we encourage those good police officers to do the right thing and even report in the first place so the prosecutors would know about bad behavior?
Fabulous question. I think they have to be trained or encouraged to exercise their integrity, to police in their integrity. And so we really have to make sure that they have integrity in their advocacy or integrity in their policing, and just really make that as a part of their training. But they need to support each other. They need to have each other's back. I don't think they know where the line is drawn when it comes to that notion. Hey guys, go out there and have each other's back. Time out. Not when you do the wrong thing. I'm not, because I have integrity in my advocacy and I have integrity in the way I police. And that's what needs to be promoted, either in some type of training or some type of messaging. Until they get that, we're going to continue to get this. And that's not right.
So we have to make it easier for the officers who want to do the right thing to be able to have that avenue to do the right thing. It is, Ricky hit on a nail. You have these relationships between prosecutors and police officers. They become so intertwined. It's hard in those 10% cases to know when they're supposed to punish. This is why we may need citizen review boards for these types of situations. We need an independent eye, whereas an outside DA's office or Attorney General's office, someone else needs to be looking at these cases, because internal affairs with police departments aren't doing it. We see from Derek Chauvin, 17, 18 times. Nothing was happening. There was nothing done in his history to tell him to stop. He only escalated.
And Anthony and Ricky, does this kind of go along the narrative of having something to the effect of a bar association for police officers? What can we do? You mentioned a third-party review system for reviewing police misconduct. Can you elaborate more on that, just on what specific policies we can do to change this?
We need to actually send these cases over to someone, an independent body, whether that's a composition of former law enforcement mixed in with just regular citizens from the community, from that city or municipality. We need someone else to actually be able to review those use of force cases when someone files a complaint, that the complaint actually goes to someone other than the police department's internal affairs, because that's where many legitimate complaints go to die. And we need to start policing, because as the community, we're the ones who elect the officials to determine what the laws are. We have to be able to see and get the evidence and information in to know, wait a minute, we don't like the way this internal policy is working. This is not what we want. We propose a revised policy that the police department has to adopt. And the only way you know it is if you see the evidence.
It's so intricate and complex because we love our officers. We love our frontliners. We love our first responders. That's true. The crowd that probably don't get it the most are criminal element-minded individuals. Just being honest. I come from that world. I did 23 years in prison. I get it. They don't like police, period. But most citizens and society as a whole, we like our police officers. And so it is hard to sit on a jury once assembled and find this individual guilty, even despite some of the hardcore evidence. And so that's a small caveat to really help give this conversation context. Policing looks ugly, guys. It's ugly. So some proper police responses look ugly, and we throw our hands in the air and scream foul on the play when it's not really a foul on the play. You do that too many times, guys, and then the commissioner and those boards that he's talking about, they're gonna say, there they go crying again. I'm not saying it's right, but it makes it a little bit more difficult for the ears to listen and for the eyes to see what really went wrong when they're inundated with all these cases or these allegations that are not true, that are exaggerated. It makes the entities who oversee these type of situations not want to believe you, or less inclined to believe you when you do that. So please, my message to you, whoever's listening, stop doing that. It hurts us in the long run.
What can we do as a community to rebuild trust with the police? What can the police do to rebuild trust with us, the government as a whole, communities as a whole, white versus black? What can we do to rebuild trust, or to build trust if there was never any trust to begin with? How can we move this conversation forward?
And that's what I was going to say is, I don't think we can rebuild it because we've never truly established trust. There's really been no trust established between the police and the government with the Black community since the inception of Black people being brought to this country as slaves. The vast majority of Black people, their only interaction with police, unless it's a family member, has been a negative interaction, because every time we come in contact with one, they're either pulling us over or they're chasing us down. We've never really tried to establish a good dialogue with Black people. Black people love police officers because we have family members who are police officers. We just want to be treated the same way as everyone else. So the first thing we have to do is start talking to officers. Their motto says to protect and serve. But many people in the minority community feels that it's really to police and harass. No one wants to talk to you at that point, because they feel even when they call you to do the right thing and to help you out, they end up getting arrested. So put down the shield and open up your mind and open up your heart and treat them as they are, God-given human beings on this planet with you, and work with them. That's how we get there. We get there by the police officers coming off the power trip and the egos and realizing I'm going to see you man to man, man to woman, woman to woman.
What can white people do? What can allies who want to do good and change the system for the better and raise us all up, how can we help?
Listen, speak up. Our stories are out there. We need more racial bias training within our police force. We need it within our district attorney's offices. And we actually just need it in general as people to assist this situation. So when we come to white people with our stories, we just need to have someone to listen, hear them out, and look at the information and then speak up. We just need the voices to be heard. We just need the understanding to be there. Like you say, I don't want anyone to walk in our shoes because our shoes are already so worn, the sole is gone and our feet are bleeding. So I don't want that for you all. I don't want anyone to have to walk in our shoes, but I do want people to understand us, listen to us, love us the same way you love everyone else.
We don't get to the bottom of it just talking about George Floyd or Ahmaud Arbery or Breonna Taylor. We get to the bottom of it by also sharing our story too. And then so we could really just do a better job in holding each other to task. I think that that will go a long way. Black lives matter. And whether you're white or of a different hue, just to remember that Black lives matter too. You ask, what can we do? Understand that Black lives matter. And the reason why that movement was so important 4 years ago after the Trayvon Martin is because it seems like everything mattered except for Black lives. Now, other individuals felt alienated or ostracized or offended. Some would say, well, all life matters. Well, the reason why Black Lives Matters came into existence and became a global thing is because for many years we was feeling like we didn't matter, that our voice didn't matter, not just in the sphere of the criminal justice system, but in work or in the district attorney's office or in these various levels of life where we felt like we were not being represented or we were being ignored. If you was of a different hue, it mattered, but if you was Black, it did not matter or matter as much. Understand that Black lives do matter. I'm a white person, it's not happening to me, but if I can remember, you know what, this matters, because a Black life matters. I think if we can do that, that will go a long way in making sure that we hold each other accountable and we kind of diminish some of these things from turning into what it's been turning into lately.
What Ricky is saying is, yes, all lives matter. But at this point, there's one house that's on fire and the Black people are inside of it and we're slow dancing in this burning room. So we're asking for the community, for the country to come and put the fire out in this house. Your house matters, but your house is not on fire. If your house was on fire, we would be there right along with you to put the flames out. But we've been slow dancing in this burning room for so long that we're at the edge right now. We have nowhere else to go. And that's the difference for the people who want to keep saying all lives matter. We never said they didn't. We just said that we can see that we're on fire and our lives seem to matter a significantly amount of less than what your life matters at this point. So we just want to not fan the flames, but put the flames out.
If you have to tell one call to action for the people listening, what is it?
Vote.
Vote. Show up, show out, vote.
Vote. It's important. And vote, guys, vote. It's really important. Let's go from protest to policy. Get involved. Be the change that you want to see. We need prosecutors on the inside. We need people to be officers. Don't hate the police department. In fact, don't even hate the officer. Hate his action. Don't condemn the entire police department. Get involved in the police. Go to training. Become an officer. You sick and tired of officers pulling you over and not doing the right thing? Become one of those officers so when you pull somebody over, they don't have to go through that. We have to fight the system from the inside out, and people are not getting that memo. I really hope not only that they show up to the polls, but they show up and start putting in applications for these positions so that we don't have to worry as much about a climate like this getting out of control in the future.
Right. If you go out and vote and you feel that the politicians aren't doing the job for the community and for you, you think about being the elected official. Don't just keep voting people in because they come in with nice little taglines saying they're going to be progressive prosecutors or they're going to be agents of change. If you know that person hasn't done it, you step up, you start doing it. We start taking over the government and putting in the policies, as Ricky's saying, that we want to see. We start becoming the police officers that we want to see on the streets. We become the prosecutors and the defense attorneys. Be active. Don't just go out and vote and leave it at that. Keep that voice heard.
I love that, and I'll echo that too. I mean, I think that both what Ricky and Anthony said is so true. And I live in a small town just north of Boston, and in my town, I mean, the local elections, the percentage of registered voters is sometimes in the single digits. And those decisions are so important. The people who are overseeing the police or funding budgets, they just impact thousands and thousands of people, and they really don't have enough. There's not enough interest. So I'm really hoping these people who are now, awakening and using their voice to go to these peaceful protests and try to make change, I hope they continue that. If people can organize and advocate for, find specific things. For me, if I could do one thing, it would be body cams. It would be coalitioning, asking for funding from the mayor, asking for the Boston Police Department and all the police departments around here to prioritize funding for body cameras, for instance. But I think if people work together, I think they can make a lot of change if they focus and do it in a productive way. And I'm hoping that happens issue by issue.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for hopping on and donating an hour and a half of your time. My hope is that even if one person, this really affects one person, it was worth it.